Afternoon, Brollies. Welcome to session 6 of our core series. When we reached out to you at the stage at the start of the series to find out what your most pressing challenges were in your day-to-day life, many raised financial well-being as a concern. As today marks the halfway mark in our 12-week series, we revisit financial well-being and further explore some of the we covered in our second session. We were given some really strong tips on how to best manage our finances. Today, we will look at how to become aware of our money habits and 21 positive money habits to implement during lockdown and beyond. The session will be facilitated by familiar faces, Liana Henning and Maria Magwaza, who are both financial coaches with many years of experiences and a passion for coaching people towards financial well-being. You may recognize them from season 2 of the core series. If you missed the session, please drop us a mail on brolcares@brol.com and we'll forward it on to you. Liana Henning has 10 years of banking experience and 15 years of experience in personal finance and financial coaching. She's passionate about financial well-being and has shared her experience and knowledge through group interventions and individual face-to-face coaching. Maria Magwaza is a trainer and a key account manager with more than 8 years experience in corporate training and 4 years experience in finance. She's passionate about people, learning, and self-improvement. Welcome back, Liana and Maria. We are ready to get smarter with our money. Over to you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the warm introduction. It's such a pleasure to be back again and to be, spending the rest of the afternoon with the Brolly community. Maria, of course, will be sharing me shortly. I just want to confirm, is the screen visible to everybody before we continue?
It is.
It is. Wonderful. Thank you so much. So good afternoon, Brollies. And of course, like the previous session, I would like to break the ice a little bit by getting your engagement on Menti polling. All you need to do is have a look at the Zoom chat. I have posted the Menti link in there, and I'm asking the question. It is, how are you feeling about your finances? Are you feeling happy and confident, anxious and scared? Are you feeling uncertain or unsure? Or is it maybe an average? So all you need to do is have a look at the chat, click on the Menti link, and it will then take you through to Menti polling. I'm just quickly going to refresh in order to see your results pulling through. Just 1 or 2 housekeeping rules, of course. If you won't mind, just remain muted and keeping your cameras off during the session. But please feel free to communicate with us in the meeting chat. Let us have your questions. I will also allow time after the session to address some of your questions. So at this point, our participants are saying happy and confident. We've got some of you saying anxious and scared, uncertain and unsure. So let's keep this votes coming. Remember, it is completely confidential. What you see on the screen is what we are looking at. Thank you so much. I'm going to keep voting open, but let's continue to our next screen. So today's session, we're going to talk about how do you become aware of your money habits? We all have them, whether they are good or bad. We're also going to talk a little bit about what is your money habits costing you? And I think this is something that we not seldom reflect on, and I really want you to think about that a little bit. What are your money triggers? So do you maybe find yourself in a certain situation that trigger you to spend money? I definitely realize that now that we locked down and cooped up in our homes, online spending seems to be a lot of people are turning towards online spending. We also know that we need to obviously implement a lot more positive money habits, and I will be sharing some of our top money habits with you for lockdown and beyond. But I think let's just recap. As Nolene mentioned, some of you might have been on our previous session. So just to link it in with the previous session, it's of course all about why is financial wellness so important. So John DeMartini always says, the quality of the questions will determine the quality, or the quality of your questions will determine the quality of your life. So when last did you actually reflect on the quality of your financial wellness journey? Very often we might understand the why we find ourselves in a particular situation, but we might not be sure how to move forward. So for the sake of this session today, I would like you to take a second or so and just reflect on your current situation. And the question I'm asking is, how financially healthy are you? Not asking you to vote, but I want you to think about, let's fast forward to August payday. You do not receive your SMS that your salary has been paid into your account. How would you feel? Would you be in a position to cover your monthly commitments until the problem has been resolved? When you look at your debt profile right now and you compare it to last year this time, what would you see? Are you seeing more debt or are you seeing less debt? Besides saving for your retirement, are you in a position to contribute towards that in case of emergency fund? And when last did you update your beneficiary nomination forms, and do you have a will in place? So think about this. What do you really want? As we've gone through the previous reflection, some things might have popped up and you might have realized, oh my goodness, I do need to update my will. I do want to manage my finances more effectively, get in control of my debt. Whatever it is, ask yourself, what do you really want out of life? And for the parents on the call, you might even want to ask the question, what do I want for my children? And I am, of course, referring to the very basic every person test. And of course, I want to go to Menti polling and ask your engagement. So, what do you want? Let's give you an opportunity. This one is, of course, slightly different. It's a word cloud, and it's going to ask you to actually type in your own word. Now, the every person test is something that might be familiar to you. I'm sure we have done it in our previous session. It is a very simple yet effective little question to make people think about their financial situation. So often when we ask this, the result that we get is I want to be financially secure, I want to be happy, and I want to be healthy. And I would love to see from our audience today what would be your results. So let's see. I'm hoping that Menti is not going to give us any trouble and that it is refreshing and allowing you. Thank you for your comments coming in the meeting chat. I'm seeing some of you are saying you want to feel comfortable with your retirement. I'm also just going to repost the Menti link quickly for those of you who might have missed it. And there we go. Some of our results are pulling up. What do you really want? I want freedom, empowerment, riches, healthy, financially secure, financially stable. And of course, looking at the empowerment, there is saving. So lots of responses coming in. Thank you so very much for your participation. So at this page, I want to say our audience is pretty average. Sorry for that. But on average, we get these responses: the financial security, I want to be happy, and I want to be healthy. So of course, we know from a financial perspective, if you've got the security, you might feel a whole lot happier, a whole lot healthier. Yes, we can argue money can't necessarily buy happiness, buy health. We know that COVID doesn't check your bank statement, but we know it makes the journey so much easier if you don't have to worry about, will I be in a position to pay my rent at the end of the month? Can I afford to send my children to university? Will I be in a position to retire comfortably one day? So just to recap, financial security can be defined based on the following elements. Do you have a budget? And what does your budget reflect? If anything should happen to you, would your loved ones and your assets be protected? Do you have the right protection elements in place? Are you managing your debt? Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you only borrowing what you can afford? And of course, do you have that in case of emergency fund? Let's not forget about the other areas that we need to protect in terms of our personal information, the home that we provide, and job security, which we know is something that's not really within our control. Now I want to turn the question to us as South Africans. How financially healthy do you think we are? So do you think we are very healthy, moderate health, or do we have poor financial health? And remember, voting is completely confidential. So even if you are unsure, please participate. Let's see your results popping up. How healthy would you say we are? And I'm already seeing some of the comments in the meeting chat. Poor seems to be popping up. You've got the option very healthy, very unhealthy, or average financial health. Let's see. There we go. Some of our results. Average financial health, very unhealthy, seems to be taking the lead. But I would, of course, like to see more of our audience participate. We're currently around 151 people on the call. Please do take the opportunity to engage with us on Menti Polling. All you need to do is click on the link in the meeting chat and it will take you right through. So at this point, nobody is saying very healthy. It seems like majority of you are saying very unhealthy. And then we've got some average health as well. And I'll tell you why I'm asking this question. So while I keep this open, let me continue. So as a financial wellness company, of course, we do our research to try and stay on track and see what is happening in South Africa. Now, the information on the slide that's currently displayed is really not pretty. I guess the best news here is the prime lending rate, which is on 7%. We know that that has been the lowest it has been in over 40 years. So great news for people wanting to get into finance facilities like financing a property, financing a car. But we know it's not great news if you are relying on investments, on the interest on your investment. The rest of the news, we can see income to debt ratio has increased. What does this mean? On average, for every 100 Rand we earn, 75 Rand is spent on debt repayments, and this has increased from 72%. We know that the inflation rate has gone up. The unemployment rate has gone up. People are feeling serious financial stress has increased to 80%. And due to all of this, people are finding it extremely difficult to retire comfortably and to save towards their retirement. So let's go right back to our next Menti question. And the question, of course, we're asking, and I just want to refresh it quickly. Sorry, it seems to be a little bit slow pulling through on the actual presentation, but I can see the back end. And the back end question then, of course, let's just make sure it is refreshing. Sorry about this. Technology is not always on our side. How have you felt financial stress in 2020? And you can even relate it to 2021. Have you felt financial stress? Is it a yes, definitely? Is it a no? Or is it an unsure? So please feel free to engage. And for those of you saying yes, definitely, there could be a number of reasons why you feel that you have experienced financial stress during 2020, 2021. And what we've seen as financial coaches that maybe within the BROL community, there's not been a change in your income, but what about your household? Maybe a loved one lost their income. Maybe you lost a loved one. And now you've got more financial responsibilities. So there could be a number of reasons why people have felt financial stress. Let's be honest, the cost of living keep on increasing. Week on week, when I go to the grocery store, I'm getting less and less items for the same amount of money. And I can see some of the participants communicating on the chat saying, yes, definitely. So 29 of our participants are saying, yes, definitely. Some of you are saying no. So if you're saying no, it means that your income has remained stable. There's not been really any changes and that your expenses has also remained stable. So thank you so much for your participation. Let's continue. So I think when we talk about money, we all can agree that it certainly causes a reaction. So when you think about money, I'm wondering, what comes to mind? And I really want to start off with the 50 Rand challenge. And Maria, I think you are on the call now. Can you just confirm for me? And then I would love to pull you in terms of the 50 Rand challenge. Are you on the call? Maria, I can see your icon, but maybe she's not on as yet. So let's rather continue until she is ready. So I want to paint this picture. It's one day before payday, right? You've got 50 Rand left in your wallet. What would you do with that 50 Rand? And for those of you who feel comfortable enough to communicate with me on the meeting chat, what would you do with that 50 Rand? Now I want to fast forward. It's payday and you have 50 Rand in your wallet. What would you do? And very often the result I get on the day before payday, if I look at my own scenario, if it was my last 50 Rand, I would possibly use it for certain needs. So maybe it would be that last bread and milk. It would be something that the household need. fast track it to payday and I've got the last 50 Rand in my wallet, but I know that my salary has been paid into my bank account, I might not even think about it twice. Might pop out, get something to eat from Woolies. If the sweetie trolley comes by, I might even just get something from the sweetie trolley. So what has changed? Has the value of the 50 Rand changed? No, definitely not. But what has changed is the perception. So the day before payday, I felt like, oh, this is my last 50 Rand. I really have to think very carefully what I'm going to do with it. Compared to my salary has been paid into my account, it's 50 Rand. There's more in the bank. So it's the perception. And that, of course, links to the different way that we view money and our different money personalities. So I do want to ask you on Menti polling, what would you do? And I'm sure some of our results would be quite interesting. I think many of you might also agree that it would go towards that last specific need. And then from there, you would definitely decide on what to do with it. So our next question then, is what comes to mind when I say the word money? Is it that it is in abundance? Is it that it's responsibilities, it's debt, it's not enough? What comes to mind when I say the word money? And I would love to see from our audience. While you are voting, I'm just quickly going to check the back end to see if our results are pulling through. And it seems to be a little slow, but let's see what comes to mind. And I'll tell you why I asked this. I think many people have an emotional connection with money. When they actually think about this, there could be a number of reasons, or a number of ideas that pop into their minds. When you think back, is it that you need to satisfy those needs, or is it that you're satisfying the wants? Have an emotional connection to money? Are you using money to make you feel better, for people to respect you? I remember years ago when I got married, on the Friday evening, my husband actually phoned me up. It was around 6 o'clock and he said, "Where are you?" He was busy getting concerned. And I said, "I'm in therapy." So you can imagine his surprise, his newlywed wife saying she is in therapy. And at the time, my connection with money was more emotional. So I had a very bad day. And I said to myself, go and spoil yourself with something nice at the mall. And of course, that's what I did. And I had to identify that particular money personality and that habit and start working towards changing it. It seems like Menti is struggling a little bit with this result to pull through. So I really want to encourage you, if you feel comfortable, let me know in the meeting chat, when you think about money, what comes to mind. So let's continue to our next slide. Maria has confirmed that she is now on the call. So when we use money, it causes a reaction, whether it is that emotional reaction, whether you're using money to satisfy your wants and your needs, maybe you're using it for retail therapy, for people to respect you. How would you feel if I said you've just won the lotto? I know how I would feel, and I'm pretty sure I won't be on this chair any longer. But we all have different reasons and different whys. And in order to understand our money personalities and our money habits, we have to take a step back in time. So I want you to think about this. What was your first money memory? Did you have a money mentor? I remember, and I'm going to ask Maria to also share with us, but I remember as a young girl, I used to collect the glass cold drink bottles. And at the end of the week, I would go and exchange them for a whopping 20 cents per bottle. With that 20 cents, I would then buy my favorite toffees, Wilson toffees, the purple ones. And that's my earliest memory. Maria, I know that you also have certain money memories. Would you like to share one of your money memories with us this afternoon?
Thank you, Liana. Putting me on the spot a little bit there, not knowing whether it's a good one or a bad one. But hello, everybody. I just remember as a young child, I used to take what we call like public transport to school. And I remember my mother giving me an envelope to give to the driver. So I opened and I thought, oh my gosh, I've never seen so much money ever in my life. It was probably 100 and something Rand. But for me, as a child, I thought, this is great. I'm rich. And the notion of this is not my money went right out the window. And I spent some of it and I gave the change to the driver like I was told. And you guys know how the story ends. It's not a great ending, but it was just a money memory to say, I had never run into so much money and I just didn't know what to do with it. And I believe that that also happens with adults as well. If you run into money and you don't know what to do with it, it kind of shocks you into acting a little bit irresponsible. So that's my money memory.
Maria, thanks for sharing that. And I can just imagine that, that face opening that envelope, sure, seeing all of this money, that is priceless. So you might have different money memories, and think about, what was the conversation about money growing up? Was it in abundance? Was there always conflict when your parents or your caregivers spoke about money? Was there never enough? And do you think that could potentially now have an impact on the way that you are viewing your money situation? Now, of course, it's not only our money habits, it's also our money personalities that could have an impact on our financial now. And I really want you to think about this scenario, and I want you to practice this and maybe implement it after lockdown, after payday, maybe when you are meeting up with a couple of friends. I did this in order to identify the different money personalities in my circle of friends. And the scenario is, it's payday, just got paid, meeting up with a couple of friends, and of course then, the bill arrives. So the response would be, what would you do when the bill arrives? And I have this one friend that always says, excuse me, I've been waiting for this phone call, and off she goes, and we don't see her again until the bill has been paid. Another friend will grab her cell phone and say, let me calculate my portion. Another friend will say, let's just split it equally. And every now and again, a friend will say, ladies, just put your wallets away. It's on me. So of course, I would like to hear from our audience this afternoon. What would you do? Would you be the one excusing yourself to the bathroom? Would you pay it in full? Would you pay your share? Or would you say, let's split it equally? I would love to hear your response. So when we look at the different responses, and this is so interesting, I actually asked my teenage daughter the other day, what do you do? And on Saturday evening, they went out for cappuccino, and I said, so what do you do when the bill arrives? And she said, no, Mom, we split it equally. And it's always such a mission, because one friend always needs to sit with the calculator while the rest go off taking selfies and enjoying themselves. Boy, have times changed. But there is different types of money personality. So what would you do? Pay the bill in full. We've got some takers. Pay for my share. Split equally. Nobody's saying at this point, go to the bathroom. And at this point in time, Maria, I'm sure you would agree, I'm quite sad that polling is confidential, because I would love to see who says pay the bill in full so that I can share my details with you. I would love to be in your circle of friends. So while we are going through Menti, I also just want to keep an eye on the meeting chat. And I see some of the comments coming up. When I think of money, I think it is only used to get through the month and life. So day to day, money makes me sad. Us working class never have enough. We can survive with money, but we cannot live a life filled with holidays, eating out, etc. On eating out, split it equally, no matter who had what. Thank you so much for your comment. And that is the reality. That is where so many people find themselves. And of course, we need to make sure that we help you not only live paycheck to paycheck and just surviving, but how can you start thriving? And I'm hoping after this session, you'll have some money habits and pointers that you can implement to help you thrive and not just survive. So the different types of money personalities, of course, we talk about the ostrich. So for those of you who've seen an ostrich, what do? They bury their heads in the sand, and they believe that if they can't see the enemy can't see them. So with our money situation, it's very similar. We avoid the SMSs, the bank statements, the letters of demand, and we're hoping that the problem is going to go away. We have the spender. I don't think I have to explain too much. We have the saver. Savers, I want to say to you, in moderation, because savers could also be seen as being stingy. We all know them. We have them in our families. They use one tea bag for 5 cups of tea. They dilute the fruit juice. They split the double ply toilet paper. Be careful. The type of personality we want to work towards is the money master and investor. Why? Because they live by a simple rule. Their expenses should never exceed their income. They pay themselves first, so a percentage of their income immediately go towards savings, and they only borrow what they can afford. And typically, it's usually good debt, which is usually debt towards financing a property or education for education purposes. Let's not forget about the bargain hunter, the treasure hunter, always looking for those bargains. And you've got to ask yourself the question, is it always a bargain? There is, of course, the gambler, not talking casino or online gambling. I'm talking, what are we going to pay this month? There's, of course, the one-night stand. What type of relationship do you have with your paycheck? Is it there on the 25th and gone by the 26th? There's the accountant, accounting each rand, each cent. And I'm sure you're wondering about the screamer. One of my daughters have got the screaming personality, constantly asking for something. Now, I guess the good news is that this is the one area where you could have more than one person, money personality, and it's not set in stone. You can change it. So if you are a spender, spend a little less. If you are a shopper, don't spend what you do not have. And then, of course, savers in moderation. You need to live a little. Ostrich, get your head out of the sand. And investors, keep on with the good work. But when it comes to our hard-earned money, have you ever asked yourself the question, what do you actually spend your money on? So is it maybe something that everybody can see? Or is it on something that very few people can see? And this is really how you can divide your expenses. So things that everyone can see, is it the car that you drive, the clothes you wear, the accessories? Is it maybe the phone or the hairstyle? And when you look at the things that only few people can see, it would possibly be your home, the type of protection cover that you have, life cover, education for your children, your retirement savings, your shares, your portfolio, and then, of course, saving for a rainy day. So think about that. Where are you spending the most amount of money? So Brian Tracy, a financial guru, always says, form good habits and make them your master rather than allowing bad habits to form. And I think we can all agree it's very easy to form bad habits, but it's not so easy to actually break them. So when we start talking about financial habits, I would love for you to participate on Mentee again. And the question I'm asking is, are you aware of your money habits? So are you aware of your money habits? Let's see some of our results pulling through. And Maria, don't get too comfortable. I am going to pull you in very shortly just to share some money habits with us, whether it's good or bad. So please make sure that you can participate on Mentee polling. I just want to make sure that it is refreshing. And Maria, if you won't mind, just to also vote for me and see if it is pulling through. I can see the back end. So in the back end of Mentee, I can see 17 of our attendees saying, yes, I am aware of my money habits, and 7 of you saying sort of. Nobody is saying no at this point in time. If you also want to communicate in the chat, please do so. Let me keep an eye and see. Some of you are saying, yes, I am aware of my habits. Great to get your participation. Thank you so much. So it seems like 22 at this point is saying yes. I'm going to keep this slide, a voting slide, active, but let's continue. Now, this is my good friend, Brian Tracy, the financial guru. And before we continue, I would love to quickly share his video with you, which is all around financial habits. And then we're going to delve into some of the habits. So in order to do so, I'm switching off my camera, but let's watch. When, Maria, if you could just give me the heads up that the sound is pulling through.
Hello, I'm Brian Tracy, and I'm always being asked, what are the habits of successful people? What is it that successful people do habitually every single day that leads to them being in the top 20% of money earners in our society? Well, Aristotle said that 95% of everything you do is the result of habit. So the rule is form good habits and make them your masters rather than allowing bad habits to form. In fact, the other rule says this, is that good habits are hard to form, but easy to live with. Bad habits are easy to form, but hard to live with. Now, one of the turning points in my life and my studies of psychology was the discovery that all habits are learned and can be unlearned. Actually, you don't actually unlearn a habit. You simply replace a bad habit with a good habit that has more power and impact. And how do you develop a good habit? You develop a habit by repetition. Almost everything you do from the time you get up in the morning is habit. So start to think about yourself as what would be the best habits to have. Now, I have written a book called $1 Million Habits. It has 12 chapters, 12 critical areas of life. And in each chapter, there's 20 or 30 habits. So let me give you some of the best. Number one, develop the habit of daily goal setting and goal orientation. What does this mean? It means when you go to sleep at night, think about your goals for the coming day. Make a list for each day of all the goals, the little goals you're going to accomplish that day. Keep a journal and write down your goals on a regular basis. When you're driving through the day, think about your goals. When you're talking to other people, think about your goals. You see, you do become what you think about most of the time. You do achieve what you think about most of the time. So all successful people and all wealthy people think about their goals most of the time. Second of all, be results-oriented. Now, results-oriented people are always thinking of the most important things that they can do right now to achieve their most important results. Successful people make a list of everything they have to do, and before they start working, they set priorities on the list. Here's a great way to become result-oriented. Actually, it's life-changing. Ask yourself, once you have your list for the day, if I could only do one thing on this list before I was called out of town for a month, what one activity would I want to be sure to get completed? And put a circle around that and start on that activity immediately, first thing, and then discipline yourself to work nonstop until you complete that one activity. This simple technique has taken people from rags to riches all over the world for at least 100 years. Pick your most important task and start on it immediately, and then discipline yourself to stay with it until it's complete. Another habit that you can establish is to become people-oriented. Recognize that everything that you achieve in life is going to be with the help or support or cooperation of other people. So always think, what is it that other people want and need from me? How can I help other people so they'll want to help me back? If you're in sales, top salespeople think about their customers all the time. They think about who their customers are and what their customers want and how they can help them the most and how they can help them even more today. In their relationships, successful people are very focused on the most important people in their worlds, both personal and in business. Another habit you can have is to stay health-oriented. Think about your health most of the time. Think about eating less food and better food. Think about daily exercise. Think about getting lots of rest. Remember, to be successful in our competitive world, you need a lot of energy. To have a lot of energy, you've got to eat good foods, get lots of rest, and exercise all the time. One of the most important habits is that of character and honesty, is always tell the truth no matter what the price.
And I'm going to stop the video right there. Of course, I will share the link when we share the slides. And I see one of the attendees asking, please share the name of the book. And it is, of course, Brian Tracy, and the book is called The $1 Million Habits. So if you'd like to go and have a look, we're not going to go through all of these habits this afternoon, but I will be sharing the link to the video with you as well. So now I want to get to the point where we delve into, and I want you to reflect on your money habits. Maria, I know that you've been dreading this because it's coming. And before I actually go to that, I want to ask you, as someone that's been in the financial wellness industry, do you have any good financial habits that you can share with our audience this afternoon?
So I think one of the best habits that helped me with discipline was to change my debit order dates. So I actually, just to teach myself to sort of not spend that money, what I would always do was set my debit order dates the same day as payday, and that wasn't helping me. So what I did was I changed everything to the first of the month. So there's literally sometimes like a 6-day gap between payday and, you know, my debit orders running. And in that 6 days, I talk myself out of spontaneous shopping. I talk myself out of certain things, even though I've got a budget. You know, it kind of gives me some time to think about my shopping and things like that. So if you can, just try it with one debit order and see. It allows you the habit, and Diana's been speaking about good habits all this time. It allows you the habit to learn how to manage your money, to not fall into bad planning, to not, you know, just spend money without consideration. And I think, I know you're going to ask me, so I'm going to share it already because I'm guilty. I do have a bad habit though, and the bad habit is online shopping. That's my bad habit.
You're that person I spoke about earlier on, you know, when we get bored, we tend to do online shopping.
Yes, that's me. And the pandemic hasn't helped really much in terms of that. So now what I do, instead of just going online, if I really, really need something, I've actually linked my online shopping with my husband, because I used to buy stuff and hide it in the boot from him. So now that we share one account, he can see what I get. So I have a coach. I have a person who's like, is that necessary? So I'm being honest, and it's now just teaching me to sort of get the things that I need to get. If you have to hide it, then it's no good for you, I say.
Oh, Maria, thank you so much for your honesty and for sharing your tips with us this afternoon. And I agree with you. You know, over the weekend, I opened bank accounts for my daughters, and it was so funny. Last night, my oldest daughter was busy on her phone on the app, and the next minute an SMS comes through to me, and I said, "What are you doing in your banking account?" She said, "How did you know, Mommy? Does this mean every single time I swipe my card at Cotton On, you're going to see what I'm buying?" I said, "Yes,
yes."
So yes, we do have to, you know, just track and guide and make sure we assist them. But there are so many other types of habits that we might not be aware of, like the online shopping, you know, window shopping. Are you maybe guilty of that? And does it stay at window shopping? So when you go to the mall, do you shop with intent? Do you know why you are there? Or are you simply just walking around, and before you know it, you're walking out with bags? Sometimes I'm guilty of that. Carrying lots of cash with you. I think that's one of the hardest things, is to actually track what we are spending that money on. If you've got kids, or, you know, anyone that's financially dependent on you, you'll know that when you have cash in your wallet, it's so easy just to hand it out. And by the end of the week, when you think, gosh, what did I do with that? You actually can't keep track. Very often people also shop with their emotions. Maybe you're an emotional shopper, not planning ahead, not checking bank statements before you go shopping. You know, is there actually money available in my bank account, or are you going to be in that embarrassing situation when you get to the pay point, when you swipe your card and you can unfortunately not pay for the items? And then withdrawing cash from another bank's ATM could also be a habit, something that you need to break. Why? Because it's costing you more money. Yes, during lockdown, the banks were very lenient, and you could actually withdraw from any type of bank without paying the SASWICH fee. But please make sure whether that is still applicable or not. And then poor planning. How many times have you gone grocery shopping? In your mind, you've got an idea of what you need to buy, but you buy everything but. And when you get home, you actually did not buy the right items. So how do we actually change our habits? I think the main thing is that you have to first identify what type of habits you have. And the best way of identifying that, and you'll remember in our previous session, we spoke about get organized, check in, look at your bank statements. So your bank statements don't lie. Go through them line item by line item and see what you're spending money on. Make sure you get into the habit that you pay yourself first. So when your salary is paid in, percentage of that income should be going towards saving. Whether it is your in case of emergency fund, paying extra towards your short-term debt, but there's got to be some form of saving in your budget. And take the time to actually plan your finances. Very often we're guilty of that. We don't take the time. So I want to delve into some of our habits, whether they are good or bad. But of course, first of all, I would like to go back to mentee polling again, just to get some engagement from our audience. And the very first question I'm asking now is, do you budget monthly? And while you are voting, let's have a look at the meeting chat. I see some of you saying, don't spend what you don't have. That's a very good rule. We learn and unlearn habits every day. Yes, that's very true. Pick up a new good habit and lose a bad habit. Challenge yourself. I love that idea. So once you've identified your habits, what is a bad habit? Try and drop it and replace it with a good habit. That's really a good idea. Then I've got someone saying, I am bad. I see something, then I will debate with myself. Sometimes it is something I really need, but actually end up not buying anything. I tend to feel guilty spending. So thank you so much for your participation. And I know we've got some of our colleagues from Africa countries as well. So I'm hoping that you are also engaging in the Zoom chat and that you are finding the session insightful. Maria, if I have missed any of the comments, please just let me know. But it seems like our participants are very good. They're saying, yes, I budget. 3 of them saying no, and 8 of them are saying sometimes. So the reality is 67% of people say that they do budget, but 3 in 4 people admit that it is hard sticking to that budget. So let's see and hear from our audience. If you said, do you budget? I'm wondering, if you then actually stick to that particular budget. The next question then is linking to our debt. And I'm asking you, do you feel that you have too much debt? And let's see your results pulling up on Menti. Remember to communicate with us in the meeting chat. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask us. Menti is a little bit slow this afternoon, but let's see what is pulling up. So do you feel that you have too much debt? I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I am actually going to continue, but I'm keeping it open for those of you who would like to vote. But let's continue to our next slide. So how do we know our habits? Well, it's really easy. You need to track your bank statements, be aware of what you are spending money on a daily basis. And I almost want to challenge you, and I refer to it as the awareness challenge. So on a daily basis, track and see, what am I spending money on from the morning that maybe if you get into your car until you go back home? What are you spending money on? Whether it is filling up your car, buying lunch, stopping for dinner, maybe it's that cappuccino, maybe it's buying flowers or a gift for someone. But become aware, and then you need to really make the decision to place your finances on a diet. You are responsible for each and every line item in your budget, and I really want you to become aware. It's like becoming financially fit. In a previous session, we spoke about training. You're not going to get up one morning and all of a sudden decide you're going to run a race. You're going to do it gradually, and you're going to train for it consistently. So very important when you talk about financial habits, and if you start changing it, to be consistent and not to give up. And I guess this really rings true. We are a result of what we do. So if we're constantly telling ourselves, oh, I'm never going to get out of debt, I'm never going to be able to save, that's possibly the result that you're going to achieve. So remember the ABC of your habits, and it's all about becoming aware, see the benefit of changing it, and then just do it. So one small thing at a time can really give you the fruit that you want to see. So I would like to share this little video with you. Simon Sinek, another financial guru and motivational speaker that I love, and he talks to us about consistency. So I'm going to switch off my camera in order to do so. Maria, once again, your cue. Please just tell me if the sound is pulling through.
Do you love your wife? Yes. Right? Prove it. Like, what's the metric? Give me the number that helps me know, right? Because when you met her, you didn't love her, right? Now you love her, right? Tell me the day the love happened. It's an impossible question, right? But it's not that it doesn't exist. It's that it's much easier to prove over time, right? So all leadership is the same thing. It's about transitions. So if you were to go to the gym, right? It's like exercise, right? If you go to the gym and you work out and you come back and you look in the mirror, you will see nothing. And if you go to the gym the next day and you come back and you look in the mirror, you will see nothing, right? So clearly there's no results, can't be measured, it must not be effective. So we quit, right? Or if you fundamentally believe that this is the right course of action and you stick with it, like in a relationship, I bought her flowers and I wished her happy birthday, and she doesn't love me. Clearly I'll give up. You know, that's not what happens. If you believe there's something there, you commit yourself to an act of service. You commit yourself to the regime, the exercise. You can screw it up. You can eat chocolate cake one day. You can skip a day or two. You know, it allows for that. But if you stick with it consistently, I'm not exactly sure what day, but I know you'll start getting into shape. I know it. And the same with the relationship. It's not about the events. It's not about intensity. It's about consistency, right? You go to the dentist twice a year, your teeth will fall out. You have to brush your teeth every day for 2 minutes. What does brushing your teeth twice a day for 2 minutes do? Nothing. Unless you do it every day, twice a day for 2 minutes, right? It's the consistency. Going to the gym for 9 hours does not get you into shape. Working out every day for 20 minutes gets you into shape.
So I just love that. And of course, throughout the session and in the last half an hour that we've been together, we've raised a couple of habits that you could identify with, from drawing a lot of cash, from window shopping, online shopping, changing debit orders, that type of thing. So we would like to zone in on what we feel is some of the top tips in terms of money habits to get you started. And Maria, I'm going to pull you in on some of these, but I guess the very first one that I would like to look at, and maybe we have shared it already, but it is one of our top tips, and it is for you to calculate your hourly rate, make money real. And I've done this, and it's also a lesson that I am sharing with my daughters. What you need to do is look at your net income that you receive on a monthly basis. We work around 160 hours, give or take. And what you want to do is then divide your net income by the number of hours that you work. So let's say, for example, the income is 16,000, you divide it by 160 hours, the hourly rate is 100 Rand. Now, if you buy a jacket of 500 Rand, ask yourself, how many hours do I need to work in order to afford it? And the result is 5 hours. If it is something more expensive, maybe it's 1 or 2 or 3 days that you need to work in order to afford that. And then ask yourself the question, is it worth it? So remember to calculate your hourly rate. Time is money, but also remember to link it back to your budget. And another tip I want to give you here is to get into the habit to be consistent in terms of budgeting and look at the percentage of your income that you are spending on certain items. So we talk about the 50, 30, 20% rule. So 50% of your income should be going towards your needs. And there we talk about housing, utilities, car payments, school fees, etc. 30% should go towards your wants, so the clothes, the nice things, and then 20% should also be going towards your savings, your in case of emergency fund, additional retirement planning, etc. Now, it's really interesting when you start looking at your budget and you start calculating what percentage of my income am I spending on groceries, what am I spending on petrol, and immediately when you start doing this, it's going to show you, sure, I think I am spending too much on certain items. So be cautious not to overspend, streamline your budget where you can, and of course, very important, when times get tough, what do people do? Immediately they start canceling insurance policies, medical aid. Please do not cancel any of the necessities, because when you do and you need it, you won't have the cover in place. Now, budgeting is definitely not sexy, but get into the habit of using a specific tool, whether it is a spreadsheet, whether it is writing it down. No, you cannot have a mental budget. Someone in a previous session says, yes, I think about my budget. There's so many tools that you can use. 22/7, The Truth About Money, Money Smart, My Money, My Financial Life. Most of the banks also offer budgeting tools. So please just have a look at your disposal, what is available. Maria, I wonder if you can maybe take us through some of the habits in terms of small changes that our audience could potentially make.
Definitely, Liana, with pleasure. And I think when it comes to small changes, you must know it makes a difference. You know, the philosophy is that the secret to financial freedom is found in our daily routine. So when you make that small change in whatever you do daily, then it will lead you to a big difference. So there's a number of things that you could consider. In your line items, you go back and you look at what small changes am I willing to make today. So let's say, for instance, you purchase coffee every single day on your way to work. That is something small that you can make a change. So you can consider maybe not purchasing that coffee on your way to work and rather making coffee before you leave home, or have a cup when you get to the office, and take that money that you spend on purchasing a coffee every day and putting that in a kitty somewhere. It'll definitely help you to do that. If you look at your line items, you could also consider other ways that you can change this. So maybe you can implement it with a lunch or something like that. I want to introduce you to some of the things that you want to do on your budget, that you want to look at on your budget. Your entertainment budget, you could possibly make a small change from there. So if you're used to going out every Friday, maybe go out every second Friday, but still save your Friday budget, and you'll see what difference it'll make. If in a week you spend 200 Rand on a Friday, per month you could potentially save 800 Rand. Per annum, you could potentially save 9,600 Rand. So that, starting small, builds up into a big deal. Coffee, cigarettes, your alcohol budget, takeaways at work, takeaways for home. So there's plenty of things that we do that we can just start making those small changes. Because if you're committing to make one change, then you'll see it'll build up as you go along. And then our next habit to start with is spending time to manage your money. I think well done to everybody on this call today. So far, we're on the right track. You spent literally about 45 minutes with us managing your money. So I want you to think about spending at least 10 minutes to spend your time managing your money. 10 minutes to review your bank statements, 10 minutes maybe to review what kind of life cover and funeral policies you've got, 10 minutes checking your credit report. So these things will definitely help you to sort of clear up what you need to. But all I'm asking for is 10 minutes a week to sort of choose a financial topic to focus on in order for you to start making changes. This is very, very uncomfortable for a lot of people, having a money conversation. It has to be had. I know that having a topic about money, it's not really sexy when you bring it up to your partner, but we are suggesting that you make it hot, make it honest, open, and two-way. Don't avoid money conversations. You have to make sure you chat to the people that depend on you financially or that are helping you also financially. Tell them what's going on. Tell them what's your status, where you stand with your money. Tell them what you can and can't do. I always say you cannot give what you don't have. So when you have this conversation, it manages expectations, it sets the bar, and it really, really avoids conflict and resentment, right? Then habit number 6, to pick up, create a side hustle. Somebody this morning said to me, I actually don't shop anymore. I go buy material and I make my own dresses. What is your passion? Make it a passion profession. And then maybe you can bake over the weekends. Maybe you can coach a little league team, or maybe you can make clothes, like I said. Find out what's your passion, what fuels you. Maybe you can make extra money doing that. You can be the caterer in your family. They could pay you to cook at events. You can invest your time in doing something that you love, but you mustn't miss the opportunity to generate some type of passive income when it comes to that. So do these things and manage it properly as well. Liana, do you know that you've got a Menti question coming up? I don't know if it'll go on the back end, if it will allow you to actually go and ask your question on Menti. There we go. So I wanted to ask everybody, do you feel like you've got too much debt? Remember, Menti is completely anonymous, so you can go ahead and answer the question. I am in favor of Menti when it comes to questions like this, because whatever your answer may be, it's not wrong, it's not right. What you can see is you're probably not the only one, in that boat. And that is very, very consoling in that sense. And this is why we have Menti in these sessions. Do you feel like you have too much debt? Yes, no. unsure. Some people can be unsure because maybe you haven't looked at your credit profile in a while. And some people are thinking, what do you consider too much debt? And I think Liana may have mentioned this at the beginning as well, that handing over, about 75.3% of your salary towards paying debt does have you deemed as being over indebted. So that leads us to our habit number 7, acknowledge the debt that you have. Knowledge is power. Know what it is that you are owing, know what to do with debt, and know what not to do with debt. So our debt dues, I'm going to pick up a few of these and just give them to you. What I do want you to do with your debt is get a credit report. It'll give you a nice, honest reflection of what you look like to your creditors and your debt profile. Try and eliminate your debt as soon as possible. If you have the affordability, try with the high interest bearing debt. And if you don't, you can also still start small, create a snowball effect and, close off that debt. I do want you to make arrangements if you are over indebted. Avoiding those people is not a good idea. If you're getting phone calls, if you're getting emails, SMSs, respond, have that conversation. I told you to make it hot, and do make payments on time. It's very, very important to do that and get assistance if you do need assistance. What you don't want to do with your debt is avoid it. It won't go away magically, so we have to face it head on. Don't be an ostrich and avoid that debt. Please, please also avoid additional debt. I do know that some service providers will offer you a consolidation loan. It might look like it's something good, but what it honestly is, you're starting off a new debt from scratch with maybe a higher interest rate with a much longer loan term. So it's obviously taking from Peter to pay Paul. So don't consider consolidation loan as a solution, a blanket solution for everybody. And lastly, don't ignore those letters of demand. Pick up the phone, have a conversation with them, and let's see what arrangements we can make. Then habits number 8, how do I become a savings addict? Save today to secure tomorrow. It also touches with our habit number 2, to make small changes. If you can save that coffee cup money, you can start by doing that, and it'll build up to make sure that your budget also has something that we call like a profitable budget, when you've got money left over to do the things that you need to do, like saving or investing. So what do you need to make sure? Budget properly, take money from some of those things that you are willing to sacrifice, and then you'll be able to start saving. So 50 Rand from the alcohol budget, 50 Rand from the entertainment budget, 50 Rand from the lunch budget, 50 Rand from the coffee budget, you already have 200 Rand to save. Now, I want to talk about financial goals. Do you have a financial goal? So what we usually do is we'll focus on relationships. How do I grow my career? How do I go to gym and get into shape? But seldom do we ever sit down and say, this is my financial goal. A financial goal can be anything from, I don't want to have a credit card by this time next year. I don't want any clothing accounts. It can be, I want to have saved 100,000 by a certain time. I want to be a millionaire by a certain time. Those are things that we call financial goals. And I really, really encourage you to write them down somewhere. I do know that we've hit the 4 o'clock mark. We're just going a little bit over, but we're going to wrap up in the next 5 minutes. So the benefits of savings, it provides you with peace of mind. You don't have to stress about unforeseen events when they do hit you, because unfortunately, that's what impacts us and leads us to borrow more money and be in debt. So if you've saved up enough, you don't have to stress about emergencies. You can always help people with, more ease if you've got amounts saved away. You become more generous and more amenable to assist your family if you do need to assist them. And you also feel more in control when it comes to making certain decisions, unlike making decisions from a pressured corner of not having enough. Then my habit number 9, teach your children about money. So from toddler to teenager, it's quite easy to implement little exercises in the home to teach children how to take care of money, how money is managed. And I want to really, really remind you, children don't do as you say, they do as you do. So if you are not making that small change, if you're saying, here's a little piggy bank save, you better be putting it next to your own kitty to show them that I've saved money. You do the same, and children will start being able to build up those good habits from an early age. So I encourage you to definitely do that. Teach them about responsibility and teach them to basically count for the better when it comes to money. Then our habit number 10, a budget line item. I want you to look at your statement. So bank charges, I want you to look at your overall statement. What are you spending on your bank account? Why do you have a platinum bank account? What are the benefits of that? Do you pay for those benefits? What does your bank offer you for free? Sometimes some banks will say all of your swiping is free, or anything downloaded like your statements is free. How long have you banked with them? What can they do for you? It always reminds me of the song Janet Jackson says, "What have you done for me lately?" You have the right to ask your financial service providers things like that. What's in it for me as a consumer? So what's the banking package that suits you? You can also go onto the net. We used to use Bank Monitor just to see, in comparison, what's on the market and what could be applicable to you. So challenge those norms, and not only just your bank. Insurance, you can also look at policies. You can also look at many other things you get from service providers to always interrogate that line item in the budget to see how they can do better for you. I think I've reached my 10 habits, Liana. I can hand over nicely to you after sharing those habits there, to just finish off the slide and just give us our closing motivation.
Maria, thank you so much for highlighting those very, very important habits, and it's often the small things that we think we miss, we don't look at them, but it's the small things that can actually make a big difference. And I guess it's hard to take that first step and to break a habit, but let's just be like Nike and just do it. And the reality is that you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. So don't procrastinate. Start by changing one line item at a time in terms of your budget and your expenses. But remember, consistency is key. So that brings us to the end of our formal session. I want to open it up and maybe go back to the meeting chat just in case we've missed any questions. I can see that there's some comments that has come in, in terms of times being really difficult at this point in time. We earn our income. With that, we cover our needs. There's very little left to cover those wants. Many of the expenses are covered through necessities, your insurance, your life cover, your medical aid. How do we actually then try to save? And I guess the reality, once again, is that we need to review each and every line item and see how could we tweak this? How could we move forward in order to try and save a little bit? So with that, I'm going to hand back to our hosts if there's any questions or final comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies. I have some questions from my side as well. First one being, what do credit rating agencies look at when it comes to giving you a credit rating? And what should you focus on to improve your credit score?
Thank you. That's a very, very good question. And I think so many people are struggling with the answer. But the reality is it's almost like a catch-22 situation. If you don't have any credit facilities, it's very difficult for you to build up a risk rating, and therefore you might not be granted credit. On the other hand, if you do have credit facilities, but you're not managing it well, you will also not be granted credit. So it's a fine line. So I usually give this guidance to young adults when they start working. If you've not had credit before, open up a retail account or go to the bank where your salary is being paid in. Ask for a credit card, but with a very low limit, because what they look at, they really want to see that if they do grant you a credit facility, do you have the discipline to stick to the limit that they have given you? And my guidance would be, if they give you a 5,000 Rand limit, don't max the facility, always stay below the actual limit, but make sure that if you need to pay the account by the 1st, that the money is already paid by the 1st. Don't pay late, pay the correct amount, and that will, of course, help you to improve your risk rating and to build up a risk rating. If you have a couple of facilities, it's also quite dangerous because the bank will look at, or a credit provider would look at, is this person overexposed in terms of credit facilities? And they look at the behavior. So if you maybe have 2 or 3 or 4 different credit cards and you pay at the end of the month only the minimum, so you only pay 10% of that credit card payment, and immediately once you've made that payment, you use the money again, that's a risk. It's a warning sign for them because you are rolling credit. So really get into the habit. If you are making use of credit facilities, don't use the whole facility. Try and pay it back, pay on time, and make sure that you pay the correct amount and limit your credit facilities. The same rule accounts for your bank account because you've got a risk rating with the credit bureau and you've got an internal rating with your bank. So what the banks look at is, how are you conducting? Is your salary paid in? How long does the salary last you? Do you go over the limit? Do you have returned items? Is there constantly inquiries, balance inquiries, and it's rejected due to no funds? So make sure that you try and manage your finances in such a way that it lasts you throughout the month and that it's not all depleted 2 or 3 days after the salary has been paid into the account. I hope that gives some clarity.
Thank you. Another question that we've got on my side is, what would be the best use of disposable monthly income, paying off high interest debt or paying off high interest debt on top of a monthly repayment plan, or putting it into a notice savings account?
Once again, a brilliant question. And as financial coaches, we always say, look at your portfolio. So do you have short-term debt? And I know we always preach you need to build up your in case of emergency fund and you need to start saving and investing. But think of it like this. Your short-term debt is usually charged at an interest rate between 15 to 25 to 35%, depending on your risk profile. Nowhere are you going to find an investment that's going to give you that type of return. So the best return on investment would be, if you have surplus funds in your budget, start by paying off the accounts with the highest interest-bearing percentage. The easiest way is create a debt profile, write down all the different debt that you have, and with that 200 or 300 Rand that you've got surplus, start paying it to the account where you've got the lowest outstanding balance, settle it, stop using that account, close the account, and once that has been paid, you take your surplus that you've now have in your bank account, plus the funds that you are saving on that particular installment, and start rolling it to the next account. And by doing that, you're fast tracking your short-term debt. You're going to eliminate it quite quickly. So at a point, you're going to be rid of all the short-term debt. You're going to have surplus cash in your bank, and you can then start pushing that towards a 32-day notice account. Eliminate the debt.
Thank you. I think that's all the questions for now. Thank you, Leonie and Maria, for sharing your knowledge and experience with us today. Just a reminder for all the Brollies on the call, we'll have our next session of the call series next week, Tuesday, same place, same time. Keep safe, and remember, we're all in this together, even though we are apart. Goodbye.